There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac and welcome back to my channel. I'm filming a few short videos back to back here. This next one I'm tentatively titling my Non-Committal NonFiction November TBR because I haven't decided whether I'm going to participate in Non-Fiction November this year. And I'm going to kind of natter on about why that is. But if I do, I have a list of 4 books that definitely I would like to read sometime and may end up reading some or all of them for Non-Fiction November. But I'm coming off 10 months of doing 3 very large reading challenges. Like each challenge had about 20 or more tasks, and I'm just finishing those up now, and I'm just not sure if I'm in the right space to take on another reading challenge, even if it's only 4 books. I'm already committed in November to doing, I think, 3 buddy reads on Litzy, and if I add 4 more, that means that perhaps 75 or 90% of what I read in November will be kind of commitments, and I'm trying to get out from under that. I also have FOMO about, I haven't participated in anything like that since I joined BookTube just a couple months ago. And I do have books sitting on my pile non-fiction books that I would like to read, and I don't read very much non-fiction. I find at this stage of my reading life, I like to read a book review about the book, the non-fiction book. I like to watch Steve's book porn channel, where he opens his mail and talks about the book, and then I think, okay, I don't need to read the book now. I much prefer fiction. I often bail on non-fiction book because it's just too detailed. It's like I would like to read a New Yorker article length version of this story. I don't want the 300-page version. So that's kind of where I'm at with non-fiction in general these days. However, I did read a really good literary biography a few months ago, Emily Dickinson and her family. I've talked about it a little bit before. I'll put the picture up here. I won't go into it, but that kind of made me realize that there are books out there that I can sink into, non-fiction books. So here's a list of 4 that may fit the bill as well. The 4 categories that the lovely people, I'm sorry I don't remember their names, I'll put all that in the show notes. I didn't write it down on my little printout, so it's gone out of my head who they are. There's 2 people that are sponsoring it or whatever, and they've set 4 tasks that you can interpret any old way you want. And he was cute. Anyway, number 1, home. Number 2, substance. Number 3, love. And number 4, scholarship. The one for home. This is when I thought, I think I want to do this challenge, even though I don't really want to do any more challenges. I want to do this because I've had this book on my shelf for about 2 months. It's called, it's hard to see, Clearing the Plains. The subtitle is Disease, Politics of Starvation, and the Loss of Aboriginal Life. Now that's weird. I think it should be definitely The Politics of Starvation. Here I am getting all grammary again, but yeah, it should be Disease, the Politics of Starvation, and the Loss of Aboriginal Life, definitely. Anyway, this is a work of Canadian history, and it's only been out for 4 years, 2013, published in my home province by the University of Regina Press. And I heard about this in a newspaper article just a few months ago and immediately ordered it. So it's about how the plains, where my family has farmed for 102 years or more, my ancestors, 130, 140 years in Saskatchewan. Before it was Saskatchewan, it was oh my god, I have a history degree and I love history and I'm from Saskatchewan and I'm just blanking on what it was called. Northwest Territories. I think it was all the Northwest Territories before Saskatchewan became a province. I had no idea of the genocidal history that made my families, my ancestors, farming in Saskatchewan possible. And this book talks about it. So Canada's first Prime Minister was Sir John A. Macdonald, and he's the one that instituted a policy of starving the Aboriginal peoples, the indigenous people, to clear the land for the homesteaders to farm. And I had no idea. I read the article and my jaw just dropped. I mean, I knew it wouldn't have been pretty, but it's not something that I knew any details about. It was not anything we were taught in school that anybody's really talking about. And I'm becoming, the older I get, the more alive I'm becoming to indigenous issues in general, but especially in a Canadian context. And so I thought, I have to read this book. I think my mom has already read it. It's going to be a tough read. The second one, I don't have it, but it's available to me on audio as part of my TuneIn subscription, premium subscription. And it's about the poisoning of that Russian dissident in the UK 11 years ago, Alexander Litvinenko, for the substance category, if I didn't already say that. So poison, substance. It's called A Very Expensive Poison. And the author is, oh God, somebody Harding. I'm embarrassed. I didn't write it down in my little printout. But I'm vaguely aware of that story. You know, Putin is an evil monster, almost as bad as Trump. So anything about him, I'm interested in. And that could be an interesting one to do on audio, if it's a good audio, if it's narrated well. It also sounds like the kind of book that I may end up thinking like a 10-page article would have been enough for me, but might try it. 3, for the love category, I've chosen one that I very much wanted to get to anyway. I just read my first Pat Conroy book the other week, his cookbook. And he talked a little bit about his first book, which was a memoir, although apparently Wikipedia tells me it's sometimes identified as a novel, sometimes as nonfiction. Published in 1972, called The Water is Wide, and it's about his experience being a teacher, and he must have been quite young at that time, and on, I don't know how to pronounce it, Dowfuski Island in South Carolina. He calls it Yamacraw Island in the book. At that time it was very poor, poverty-stricken, little infrastructure. The residents were nearly all descendants from slaves, and they had had little contact with the mainland or its people since they escaped there or settled there. So that's fascinating. And he struggles with how to reach his students and connect with them. And they're mostly illiterate and innumerate, and he gets fired from that job because of his unconventional teaching methods, and it's his memoir of that. So that sounds like love. It's hard not to think about Pat Conroy and love in the same thought bubble anyway. And the last one is a book that I've had on my shelf for several years. I'm a ESL teacher and a bit of a grammar geek. But my grammar geekery is evolving or devolving, depending on your point of view, to the point where I'm getting more and more relaxed about grammar. And I don't like this grammar snobbery that I once embraced. I still teach the basics of grammar to my students, and I love teaching grammar and geeking out over it, but there's this snobbish, classist aspect of it I'm starting to hate. For scholarship, the idea of scholarship, was that the right title? Yeah, scholarship. Really turns me off. I'm a recovering grad student, and it was a very negative experience for me, and so something more popular. So this is a popular history of American grammar called Founding Grammars, How Early America's War Over Words Shaped Today's Language. And the author is Rosemary Ostler. I heard about it, bought it, haven't read it. She's a linguist and former librarian. The blurb here starts with these questions. Who decided to not split infinitives? With whom should we take issue if, in fact, we wish to boldly write what no grammarian hath writ before? Okay. Split infinitives, that's a joke, right? I mean, it's become a convention, but there's absolutely no basis in reality for why that is a rule. It's ridiculous. And don't even get me started on whom. I am militantly opposed to whom. I use it in my own writing, and I teach it to my students after a preposition. But any other time, you're just a snob to use it. And of course, if you're a book reviewer, or if you're professional writer, you're publisher or your magazine has rules, you have to follow them. But as a general rule, whom is the most annoying, ridiculous word in the English language. Anyway, so I'm looking forward to reading this, whether I get to it for November, Nonfiction November. I am thus far non-committal. Alright, so that's my non-committal nonfiction November video. Thanks for watching.